For years, you've been overlooked, dismissed, and underestimated. You played by the rules, thinking that consistency, kindness, and loyalty would be enough. You watched as fleeting excitement was chosen over lasting stability. You saw men who lacked depth being pursued, while those who were truly ready to commit were ignored. But now the tide is turning. She assumed she had endless time, that no matter how many times she pushed you aside, you would always be there, waiting. She believed her youth and beauty were permanent assets, that attention would always be in her favor. But time doesn't work that way. Illusions eventually crack. Meanwhile, you were building. The men once labeled as too boring or not exciting enough have honed their minds, built their bodies, and secured their financial independence. And now you are the man she needs. But here's the twist. You're no longer waiting. You've realized something far more valuable than her approval, your own worth. And with that realization comes power. The power to choose, the power to walk away, the power to set standards rather than being at the mercy of someone else's timing. But this isn't about revenge. This isn't about proving anything to anyone. This is about wisdom, mastery, self-respect. It's about breaking free from the belief that you had to earn validation from those who never valued you. It's about making smarter choices in your mindset, in your relationships, and in your life. Because the truth is, men who understand their value shape the future. And if you're ready to see reality for what it is, if you're ready to master your path with stoicism, discipline, and control, then stay with me. This one shift will change the way you see relationships forever. Let's begin. For years, she was told she could have it all: the lifestyle, the high-status career, the freedom to explore relationships without consequence. Society reinforced the idea that she should never settle, that her mere presence was enough to command devotion. She was conditioned to believe that her options were endless, that no matter how long she waited, men would always be there, ready, eager, and willing to compete for her attention. And for a while, it seemed true. In her early 20s, the world appeared tailor-made for her desires. Every night out was a parade of validation. Every dating app matched a new opportunity. She didn't have to pursue, she only had to exist. Men approached, initiated, and invested their time, money, and emotions without her needing to reciprocate. She could afford to be selective, even dismissive, because the attention felt limitless. After all, why settle down when the world insisted she had all the time in the world? But there was something she was never told, something that society conveniently left out. Her power came with an expiration date. The attention she once mistook for a permanent asset. It was never truly hers. It was borrowed from time, an illusion that fades. Unlike men whose value in the dating market rises with experience, financial growth, and personal mastery, her leverage was tied to fleeting qualities, youth and beauty, things that time inevitably reshapes. And now, reality is setting in. The text messages that once filled her inbox, coming less frequently. The compliments that used to validate her worth, fewer and farther between. The men she once dismissed as boring or not enough, they're building their lives, but with other women. And those women, they made different choices. They didn't waste their best years chasing fleeting excitement or prioritizing temporary indulgences. They recognized early on that a man's worth isn't determined in the moment, it's forged over time. They valued a man before he reached his peak, not just when it became convenient. And now those women stand beside strong, successful men, the very same men she once overlooked. The truth? She miscalculated. She overestimated her options and underestimated the men who could have built a life with her. She assumed the power dynamic would never shift, that no matter how long she waited, the right man would still be there when she finally decided to settle down. But men who spent their 20s grinding, honing, discipline, sharpening skills, building wealth, they're not waiting anymore. And now, you hold the power to choose, because while she was spending her prime indulging in fleeting thrills, you were building. While she was rejecting men who had potential, you were becoming the kind of man that women chase. And now, you're no longer just an option, you're the prize. But this isn't about gloating, this isn't about revenge, this is about understanding reality. The dating market isn't static, power shifts. And for the men who recognize their own worth, the game is no longer the same. The question is, do you see it? From the moment she understood the world, she was told a story. She was inherently valuable just by being a woman. Society conditioned her to believe men should always chase her, that her options were limitless, and she should never settle. For years, this idea was reinforced through movies and social media. Messages like, "You deserve the best. Never settle. A real man will wait for you. Focus on your career. Relationships can come later." In her early 20s, she was at her peak in the dating market. Attention and compliments came easily. Men approached her, offered time, energy, and commitment, and she had the luxury to choose who to entertain. But nothing lasts forever. She assumed time was on her side, that better options would always be there, and she could delay commitment while chasing excitement. Then, one day, the chase disappears. The messages become less frequent. The invitations for dates dry up. The men who once pursued her no longer look her way. She goes out expecting the same admiration, but the energy has changed. This is when panic sets in. What she thought was her birthright, constant validation and unlimited suitors, was temporary. She never expected it to fade. The paradox of modern dating: women are encouraged to chase short-term excitement, to explore options and delay commitment. Yet they expect long-term commitment, believing a high-value man will still be waiting when they're ready to settle. Here's the hard truth: high-value men don't wait. The men who spent their 20s building themselves aren't interested in being a second choice. The very men she overlooked, stable, disciplined, committed, are now the ones she wants. But they've moved on. They no longer chase or seek validation. They've built lives that don't include her. For the first time, she has to face a truth no one prepared her for. The power she thought she had wasn't real. It was borrowed, and now it's gone. For years, she believed time was on her side. She was told she could delay commitment, focus on herself, and still have the ideal man waiting when she was ready. She was assured the right man would always be there. No rush. But life has a way of revealing truths. One day, she looks around and realizes her options have changed. The men who once pursued her relentlessly, the ones she rejected, are no longer interested. They've moved on. They've built successful lives without her. The harsh reality of wasted time. For many women, this hits in their late 20s or early 30s. The flood of date invitations, slow trickle, the constant text messages from suitors, fading the men she once dismissed. They've leveled up, financially, emotionally, physically. Now, instead of admiration, they look past her. This is when the panic sets in. She starts reaching out to men from her past, the nice guys she ignored. She speaks of maturity and real relationships, but let's be clear, what she's really saying is, "I've lost my leverage." She isn't seeking love. She's seeking stability. She's not looking for a meaningful connection. She's looking for someone to clean up the mess her choices created. If you're not aware, you risk becoming her safety net. The rise of reformed women. Modern social media and self-help culture are now promoting the idea of reformed women. Those who spent their 20s chasing thrills and are now, with limited options, promoting traditional values. You see influencers advising women to settle down before it's too late. You hear older women warning younger women not to make the same mistakes. You read posts where women admit they were sold a lie, that prioritizing excitement over long-term commitment has a cost. But here's the problem. These reformed women only embrace commitment after losing their prime years. They're not promoting these values because they believe in them. They're doing it out of necessity. Men who've spent years building themselves should think twice before rescuing someone who rejected the very things she now claims to want. You don't owe her anything. The reality is, she made her choices. She believed her youth and beauty would last forever. She dismissed the idea that men would grow and change. Now, the men she wants have options, and she's no longer one of them. This isn't about revenge. It's about recognizing value. Men who know their worth don't accept being a backup plan. They don't invest in women who only see their value after running out of options. If you've put in the work, built yourself up, and mastered your life, you don't owe her a second chance. She made her choices. Now she has to live with them. For years, she was the center of attention. Men sought her approval, competed for her time, and offered their resources. She never had to chase, never had to prove herself, and never imagined male attention would fade. But suddenly, something changes. The men who once pursued her aren't looking at her the same way. At social events, she sees younger women commanding the attention she once took for granted. Social media and the disappearing validation. She turns to social media for reassurance. She posts pictures, curating her best angles. But this time, the engagement is lower. The inbox isn't filling up, and the compliments are coming from the men she once ignored. Not the high-value men she used to attract. For years, she assumed male attention was her right, but now she realizes it was never about her. It was about what she represented: youth, beauty, and potential. Now, time has reshaped the scales, and she's no longer the automatic first choice. The men she rejected have moved on now. She sees the men she once rejected, successful, confident, and no longer interested in her. The nice guy she dismissed, because he wasn't exciting enough or making enough money, is now thriving, dating younger, more feminine women. He's no longer the desperate man she once knew. She reaches out, hoping to rekindle something, but instead of a warm welcome, she's met with silence or polite indifference. For the first time, she realizes she is no longer the one who chooses. Men are choosing now. Why high-value men don't settle for second chances. Men who have built themselves through wealth, discipline, and character don't owe anyone a second chance, especially someone who only sees their value after running out of options. A woman who values a man from the start, supports him during his growth, appreciates his potential early, builds something with him. A woman who sees his value only after losing hers, wants him to rescue her from her past mistakes, expects commitment after rejecting him, sees him as a last resort. High-value men don't settle for being a last resort. They've built their lives with sacrifice, and they have no interest in playing savior to someone who chased excitement instead of stability. The final shift now, the power dynamic has flipped. The woman who once held all the options finds herself chasing the very men she once ignored. Those men, they're no longer waiting. A man who understands his worth isn't interested in being an afterthought. He's focused on building a life with someone who saw his value from the start. She never thought it would happen. For years, she pushed away commitment, believing there'd always be another option. But now, reality has caught up. The men she dismissed are no longer available. The stable, hard-working men she deemed boring have moved on, built successful lives, and are thriving without her. And that's when she reaches out. The "I miss you" message. It might seem like an innocent text. "Hey, it's been a while. How have you been?" Or, "I regret how things turned out." She claims she's changed. She says she's grown and finally understands what matters. But let's be clear, this isn't about love. It's about stability. She wants you to rescue her from her past choices. She's not reaching out because she appreciates your value. She needs what you have. She sees your financial stability, emotional maturity, leadership. For the first time, she realizes these qualities aren't guaranteed. She assumed the right man would always be there. But men like you have evolved. You're no longer the naive guy who gave away your value for free. Now, she's the one chasing. The trap many men fall into. This is where many men get caught. Society has conditioned men to be patient, understanding, and forgiving, to overlook the past and accept a woman for who she is now. But here's the reality. She presents herself as a changed woman, but her priorities have shifted out of necessity. She suddenly values commitment, not because she respects it, but because she has no other options. If you don't recognize this trap, you'll fall right into it. Why modern relationships fail this? Dynamic is why modern relationships fail. Women are taught to explore options until it's too late. They believe men will always be there waiting. Meanwhile, men are expected to be consistent, forgiving, and patient, even after being overlooked for years. And when a woman finally decides to settle, she expects a high-value man, a man who spent years building himself, to ignore the fact that she never valued him when it mattered most. High-value men don't reward poor choices. A woman's past choices matter. They reflect her decision-making, her values, her long-term thinking. If she only sees your value after running out of options, that's not love, that's survival. High-value men don't invest in women who ignored them when they were growing. They invest in women who saw their value from the start. The shift in power now, the power dynamic has flipped. The men who were once ignored are now the ones who choose. And they're not choosing women who see them as a last resort. They're choosing women who recognize their value from the beginning. A man who knows his worth understands one thing. You are not a woman's second choice. You are her missed opportunity. And that makes all the difference. Men and women inherit different realities. Women are born with value. Their youth, beauty, and fertility make them highly desirable in the dating market. These qualities attract attention, admiration, and opportunity without effort. Meanwhile, a man's value must be built. A young man in his 20s doesn't have status, financial power, or experience. He must work, struggle, and develop himself before he is sought after. This is why male and female value operate on different timelines. Understanding this dynamic is critical for men who want to take control of their lives. The peak and decline of female value. A woman's value peaks early. Late teens to mid-20s is when she's most desired. She has the most attention, the most options, and the greatest ability to secure a high-value man. But her value is perishable. If she doesn't secure commitment in her prime, her options decline over time. The attention she once received fades. The men who once pursued her now pursue younger women. The power she once held is no longer hers to control. A woman's value in the dating market isn't guaranteed for life. It declines unless she makes wise choices. Commit to a high-value man early. Invest in qualities beyond physical attraction. Develop loyalty, support, and strong character. For those who believe time is infinite, the shift happens too late. The growth and rise of male value. A man's value is built. He starts with nothing. No woman is going to chase a broke, inexperienced 20-year-old. He must earn his value. A man spends his 20s developing his career and financial independence, building his physique, discipline, and resilience, mastering skills, leadership, and emotional intelligence. A man's value increases over time. In his 30s and 40s, he has financial stability, status, and the power to choose. The same women who rejected him when he was young now want him, but he no longer needs them. A woman is given her value. A man earns his. This is why the patient, disciplined man wins in the end. How modern men are waking up. For decades, men were taught to chase validation from women. They were taught to prove their worth to women who never respected them, accept being a backup plan after women wasted their best years. But now, modern men are waking up. They focus on self-improvement, financial success, and personal growth. They understand that women respect men who respect themselves. The best way to win in dating is to become the best version of yourself. High-value men. Don't settle for women who only realize their worth when they run out of options. The power shift. The dating game flips in a man's favor. The men who were once ignored are now the ones who choose. They choose women who saw their value from the beginning. They don't settle for women who took them for granted. The men who invest in themselves will always have options. And the women who wasted their best years chasing excitement, they will be left realizing they made the wrong choices. The world has changed. The dating market has shifted. If you're a man who's put in the work, understand this. You don't owe her anything. Men have been conditioned to fix the consequences of a woman's past decisions, to be the safety net. 2. Become the backup plan, to rescue her when she's ready to settle. But the truth is, you've built yourself up. You've spent years improving yourself. You've developed discipline, financial independence, emotional intelligence, and physical strength. You are no longer the man who was overlooked, rejected, or dismissed. Now it's on you to decide if she still deserves access to you. The price of ignoring reality. Not all women waste their prime years. Some recognize a high-value man early and invest before he reaches his peak. But those who ignored this reality are now paying the price. The men they want? No longer interested. The attention they took for granted? Gone. The easy options? Disappeared. Now, many are desperately searching for someone to save them, but that someone doesn't have to be you. Set standards. Choose wisely. Being a high-value man isn't just about making money, getting fit, improving your mindset. It's about knowing your worth and having the discipline to enforce your standards. You don't entertain women who respect you only after losing their own value. You don't sacrifice years of hard work for someone who treated you as a last resort. You don't invest in a woman who sees your worth only when she has no better options. A man who knows his worth sets the terms of his relationships, leads with confidence, never allows himself to be a backup plan. Men who put in the work always have options. The women who wasted their best years chasing excitement will be left looking back, realizing they made the wrong choices. Final thought. Know your worth. Remember, you are not a backup plan. You are not someone's second choice. Women who made wise choices early will find happiness. Those who ignored reality will struggle. It's not your responsibility to fix that. Your responsibility is to yourself. Keep building, keep growing, keep choosing wisely. Your value is earned, not given. Your turn. Declare your worth. If you refuse to be a backup plan, if you understand your worth, if you know you hold the power to choose, comment below. I know my worth. Let the world know you are a man who will never settle for less than he deserves. This is your time. Make it count.